welcome to Eddie's Expression Initiative at home. I'm actually at work now, so it should be Eddie's Expression Initiative at work, but okay. So what I'm going to talk about today, we've been talking about this moment in history and time, or progression of people over time. So we showed you some art and stuff, progression over time. I just want to talk about instrumentation, I think you'll find really interesting. Earlier on in the piece, we started looking at drums, and we were doing some drumming. And we discussed how this is actually a resonating chamber which allows the sound, which is air moving, to reverberate inside and create a sound and escape out of the hole at the bottom. If I bang the drum flat against the ground, you'll hear the difference. That's on the ground, that's into the room. You can hear the difference. The chamber makes all the difference and the air has to escape. Okay, so that's not limited to just drums, okay? Because here's the trusty old acoustic guitar. Everybody has a hat stand like this at home. And it probably sounds as good as that too. But this has a resonating chamber. So the way this works is as this string resonates, or you pluck it, it vibrates, the sound goes into the hole in the guitar, bounces around this chamber, and then amplifies by bouncing around and making it louder. So that's why in the early days, that was the only way to amplify stuff. So if you think about instruments and instrumentation, we have violins, we have violas, we have cellos. They're all basically the same shape of instrument, a figure of eight, if you will, with F holes to allow the sound to resonate in, but just getting bigger. And the bigger they get, the deeper the sound gets, because the strings are getting thicker and the sound is vibrating at a slower frequency the thicker the string. So this creates the bass sounds. But then that travels all the way up into tiny little violins, which have really high tones, really squeaky high tones. And that was the best we could do with the instruments that we had back in the day. The only way that we could make it better was by multiplying instruments. And now we've got orchestral music happening. We've got a violin section, a viola section, we have a cello section, we'll have the timpani, which is the drums, and then we could have the brass section over here, but they're all building in size, and the rooms themselves were amplifying chambers. They actually push the sound forward to the audience. You probably noticed when you've gone to a theater, or if any of you have ever been to a natural what they call an amphitheater, which was back in the days when the Romans were creating viewing spaces, they'd use the side of a hill and they'd talk into the hill and they'd be captured around the sound. And so they didn't have to shout loudly to be heard, the projection. Okay, let's shoot forward in time. Okay, now we have electricity and we have the ability to amplify things. So how does that work? So it doesn't have a chamber. So if we look at this is actually got a pickup in it, so I can use it like an electric guitar. So actually under the strings on the bridge here, it catches the vibration of the sound through the timber, and then it brings it out over here. I've got a little bit of control over the sound over here, and then that can create new sounds with that. So that sounds different again. A lot more twangy in its sound compared to the nylon string, because these strings have a deader sound because they're only just plastic tightened, whereas this is metal itself, so it has a metallic twang. And in the 50s and 60s, we moved into electric guitars, and that had no resonating chamber. The problem was that when they were amplifying these guitars, the sound would feed back into the microphones on stage and cause huge buzzes. I'm sure you've heard feedback. I'll try and put a sample of it in here. Okay, how many of you enjoyed that? I thought so. And so this guitar is a copy of a Fender Stratocaster. The two main guitars in the 50s and 60s were the Les Paul, in terms of solid body guitars, the Les Paul by Gibson or the Stratocaster by Fender. The Stratocaster, they're two different machines in that this had now, we're talking about progression of technology, this has 3 pickups on it. So whereas the acoustic only had 1 in the bass, this has 3. And each one picks up a different area of the string, which creates a different sound itself each time. And then this switch here is a 5-way switch, And by switching that, you make different combinations of these pickups, creating different sounds again. So as time grew, we were able to make more sounds out of one single instrument, which got pretty incredible, right? So we can also affect the tone of the sound and the volume of the sound using these keys here. You can have a whammy bar on here as well, which would the sound on the guitar, which is fun. So we moved into electrics. I heard this story. Pete Townsend of The Who had a guitar, a solid body guitar, and he had an amplifier. And I just brought this out. So this is like a miniature amp, right? They were much bigger than this back in the day. But this inside of it has a small speaker, but the cone inside of it, the speaker itself, is made of paper. And when you over amplify that, it can tear, which then makes a really raspy sound, which was distortion, which is what happened by accident to Pete Townsend when he was playing in The Who, and he discovered he could play a really cool distorted sound that they'd never heard before. The sound had never been heard before. So this is why if you think about music in the 70s, it's very rock-based. It's because that sound had never been heard before. I'm going to reiterate it. It had never been heard before, and that's why it tickled people and made people interested in what that kind of music was, because it was almost alien to them. So we look at sound traveling over time. We then started moving into the 80s. We started going into synths and pop, so we started moving into computers more. Now we make music in computers generally. We get the sound of the guitar into the computer. We'll need some sort of input like this. This is a interface to get the sound into the guitar, into the computer. If you don't have one, but you have a computer, you can come to us, record here, and take that home with you and record if you want. We have that capability here. So I've got the sound in, so I've got a sample here. You can see this blue line here that's sampled. So I'll just play it for you so you can hear what I've got. Oops, that's muted it. And play. So this is a little bit of what they call noodling on guitar, where they're just playing through a pattern. It's a very clean sound. What we want to do is we want to treat it a little bit. So actually in most softwares that have audio capabilities, it'll have just effects in there as well. So I've got a whole library of effects in here. When it comes to guitar, I can use acoustic guitar effects, so I can thin the sound out by putting it through an effect, which sounds like this. Which you probably won't be able to tell any difference on your phones hearing that, but in the studio it sounds a little bit different. A clean guitar sound from the 50s would sound a little bit something like this. But then you might mix it up a little bit and get, this is what they call crunch, which is where and it's not full distortion, but it's just crunchy. So we'll just go with a blues sound here, but I'm using the same loop. Hear it straight away. And that's like a flavor or a choice of color that you might use. So you like the rhythm that you've played or the music that you've played, but you just want to add a bit more flavor to it. That's where we add crunch or distortion. When we get to distortion, and you've got a whole bank of crunch and distortion effects in here. The studio here at Eddie's is available for use for kids. You just got to ring ahead and make a booking or send us a message. We can make a booking for you. I can run through how all of this works and take you through some of this tech, and you can work on some of your songs. You can bring songs from home in and work on them here. You can start songs here, take them home and work on them there if you want a bit of privacy. It's a great studio. It's very similar to one that I've got myself at home, so I highly recommend most of this software and equipment. But let's look at a distortion sound. So this is called a Burnin' Tweed, which is like a 50s amp that's cranked up real high. I like the sound myself. I use it a fair bit when I'm producing. So you can hear how that's really a lot more. It's less crunchy and more twisted in sound. It's kind of cool. And then finally, I'll show you there's actually an experimental section in this, and I'll show you a couple of effects on that. So this is the same sound. We're using the same sound that we recorded, exactly the same sound, and we're just applying effects to it. And this will show you just how much we can tweak sound. It's pretty wild. Check this out. And I'll switch into another one. This one's called Spin Cycle. Or this one. This is called Ghost World. All of these effects can be applied while playing or in post when you're mixing it down afterwards if you want to treat it. Sometimes it's fun to plug your guitar in and play directly through the effects because you might find that you play slightly different or play the music You might find that you play the music slightly different if you play it straight into rather than sampling and putting yourself back through it again. So just in terms of music, I want you to think about this. I want to make a statement. Music changes and new sounds are created through new machines. Nowadays we're heavily influenced by electronic music and electronic sounds. So I will say that I believe that dubstep was the last great step forward in new sound creation. If you think about it, that was one of those types of music that had all these wop, 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 and noises that were just didn't make a lot of sense, but really worked with the beats and the electronic sound around it. I've used a lot of dubstep with acoustic stuff as well, just to mix it up. Again, progressing things forward and watching music change over time. So, yeah, thanks for watching. If you want to book the studio, come down. I can spend an afternoon with you showing you how this works. Remember to take care of yourself, look out for each other, wash your hands. Hi guys, thanks for watching the video. Can you like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that bell notification, everything you need to do, you know what you need to do. Can you do it please? That'd be great. Alright, cool. See you in the next one guys. Take care.